Hello gentlemen, and welcome to another Palavi market research video. I wanted to continue our history discussion in the context of our presidential election since we had such an exciting past week. What we're going to discuss is the origins of Trump's influence, because where his power originally came from sits within a greater context related to one of the most important transfers of power in modern American history. This story begins in Manhattan in the early 70s. And if you're unaware, at this time in New York City was a total disaster. The middle class was fleeing the city into the suburbs, and when they left, their tax dollars left with them. This was a major problem because over the previous 30 years, the politicians running the local government of Manhattan had overborrowed from the city's banks. The politicians used these loans to pay for various government services like welfare, okay? But since the tax revenue was falling, while the interest was accruing, the city was weak. This vulnerability caused a radical shift of power to occur in 1975, when the banks grew fearful that the city was never going to pay them back, causing all the banks to stop lending to the city. Upon doing this, the banks successfully argued that they had the right to take control over the city to protect their existing loans. The city's politicians were desperate and unable to fight back. They even reached out to President Ford, who refused to help them. So the banks took over by creating a new committee designed to manage the city's finances. 8 out of 9 members of that committee were bankers. This was the start of something totally new in America, where financiers usurped a layer of power away from politicians, placing it outside of a democratic process. That layer of power is effectively money. Immediately upon the city being taken over by the bankers, the city's famous austerity policies came into place. They fired thousands of teachers, policemen, and firemen while cracking down on local crime. However, with this new body of power came new opportunities, because at the end of the day, these bankers were desperate to get the city back on its feet. So who identified and captured this opportunity? Donald Trump. At this time, Trump began buying up broken down buildings around the city, using very little of his own money, and announced he was going to transform them into luxury hotels and apartments. The banks lent him money to do this because the redevelopment of the city's real estate was how the banks were going to get their money back and then some. This is how they were going to make a huge amount of money. So to incentivize Trump and other developers, further, they gave out tax breaks. Trump actually negotiated a $160 million tax break to develop the Grand Hyatt Hotel, the biggest tax break in New York City's history. The value arbitrage these banks were able to engage in at this time, using the real estate they absorbed, was mesmerizing. So through these traditional lending processes, and by defaulting loans on the local government, and then claiming its assets, the government's assets, like the government's real estate assets, and then financing the development of new buildings, allowed these bankers to make enormous sums of money, basically redeveloping Manhattan into what it is today. So for Trump was in a once-in-a-generation opportunity. Like, he was in a moment, right? And he took advantage of that moment. He was arguably one of the best locations for a real estate opportunity in the history of the world, honestly. But this market opportunity he captured is incredibly important. And there's this important characteristic that I want to point out. The profitable venture he pursued was effectively subsidized by the government, which adds, honestly, I think double digits to his profit margins on assets like this. And these assets have favorable qualities in the context of receiving relatively cheap loans from banks. Thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's what we're going to discuss today. All your comments are really appreciated, especially lately. If you found this video valuable, please share it, because the word of mouth with your friends, that's how we want to grow this thing, right? That's how we want to grow the community. We want to get people that we know in here, and and I want to make videos on what you guys want to hear about. So if you guys have a topic you want me to cover, let me know. All right, see you guys.